Salmon Run is the freshest thing about Splatoon 2. A zombies mode for that kid-friendly shooter seems like a silly idea, but once I saw it in action, I realized it's actually pretty brilliant. The need to take back any turf that the enemies walk over makes the whole thing a chaotic juggle between enemy combat, resource collection, and preservation of map control. And all this might be a little too easy if not for one special ludonarrative design element. When I played the first Splatoon, I didn't give the weapons as much of a shot as I could have. I tried out each one for at least 1 or 2 games, but I quickly found myself going back to my 2 mains, the ink brush and squiffer. Although I like to think of myself as pretty good at the game, I was sort of limiting myself because I didn't always know the specific dynamics of other weapons. Although I was able to get some experience by playing against other people's items, the best way to get a feel for this kind of thing is to play with them. And while I could just use those weapons myself, that wasn't always the most fun option for me. After all, if I don't know how to use a weapon, I'll regularly find myself using it wrong. Thanks to the general layout of a lot of the levels, combat in Splatoon, at least in Turf War, was relatively uncommon, and I wouldn't dare risk going into ranked with a weapon I didn't feel super comfortable with. Recon and training mode were options, but I don't think they have the potential to give the player the deepest combat experience. Splatoon 1 single player did give you some basic combat mechanics, but it restricted you to only 1 weapon, or if you had the amiibo, only 3. Splatoon 2 single player does a little better by making combat generally more difficult and allowing you the use of up to 9 weapons, but that just isn't quite enough in my opinion. After all, while the Octobrush and Inkbrush are really dang similar, their use in online requires distinct technical nuances. Practicing one will only give you so much understanding of how the other works. And this is why Salmon Run is the freaking best. Every time you play it, you're randomly given one of 4 weapons, and those 4 weapons rotate every time Salmon Run is active. The weapon selections naturally force players into different classes and cause players to familiarize themselves with each one. For example, I'd never really given the blasters a chance in Splatoon 1. I felt like they shot a little too slowly for inking the ground, and my aim wasn't good enough to warrant using it in combat. But people still used them on me all the time, and to great effect, so clearly they weren't bad. Salmon Run taught me a little more about it. It's great for crowd control on swarms of enemies, and it hits hard if you land on target. Being on the using end of this weapon has helped me understand how my opponents feel when they're using it, and I can use this knowledge to my advantage when I'm up against them. I think the moment I felt like I understood the blaster was against the Stinger boss. It shows up on the coast and is super tall. In order to defeat it, you need to destroy each tier of its body, and then finally, when only the head remains, you can destroy that. Most of the time, I attack this guy from the bottom as each piece of its body is slowly destroyed. You can attack the pieces in any order you like, but most weapons can only hit one at a time. While I was using the blaster, I attacked right in the middle of his tower neck and found that one blast took down multiple pieces of his neck tower. I knew the weapon had a large attack radius at the end of its shot, but I had no idea of its potential before this moment, and it's all thanks to the Stinger boss. And he's not the only boss you're going to be learning from. In fact, every boss enemy is uniquely designed to capitalize on the individual strengths and weaknesses of each item in ways that are downplayed by any of the combat experiences you see in the multiplayer. For example, this boss named Steelhead can be hard to hit. He can't be damaged unless he reveals the bulb on his head, which is only vulnerable for about 2 seconds. If you don't destroy him during that time, the bulb causes a big explosion, covering the ground with enemy ink, and it takes a moment before he becomes vulnerable again. He's a challenging enemy, and he teaches players to work with what they have. During one Salmon Run, the available weapons were the Splatling gun, which requires a charge but shoots a ton of bullets, the blaster, which shoots slowly but has a large damaging radius, the roller, a melee weapon that can fling some ink at a short distance, and the ink brush, an incredibly fast melee weapon that can't fling ink very far at all. None of these weapons are particularly reliable for taking down Steelhead. The ink brush literally can't even reach the bulb unless you're on higher ground. The roller and blaster fire too slowly to hit the bulb for much damage, and the Splatling gun needs to be charged, so if the bulb is showing, it's already too late to charge a reliable attack. 9 times out of 10, these teams won't be able to get Steelhead on his first moment of vulnerability, so his bulb will go off and spread enemy ink. Next, the roller and ink brush will try to gain back the lost turf, a smart blaster will attack other mini enemies that accumulated while everyone's attention was on the bulb, and the Splatling gun charges up their attack for the next moment of vulnerability. Anyone who faced a Steelhead with one of these weapons learned something valuable about that weapon, and they can apply this knowledge to the multiplayer, or even a more Salmon Run. Every boss is designed with little nuances that allow for interesting combat encounters with each potential weapon you get. And it's not just the main weapons. This guy, Moz, lurks beneath you before attacking you with a big bite. You can defeat him quickly by dropping a bomb right where he's going to come up, but if you throw the bomb too far or at the wrong time, it won't work. This other enemy, Flyfish, opens his missile launchers for a short period of time during which you need to toss a bomb inside. Both of these bosses teach the player about timing and trajectory of bomb throws, which can be extremely useful in multiplayer whether you're the one throwing the bombs or not. Basically, Salmon Run is a fantastic training ground. By being put in situations that rival the multiplayer in complexity, players are more able to gather an intuitive understanding of the breadth behind each weapon. Even if it's not a weapon they'll be using in Turf War or Ranked, it'll prepare them for enemy players by making them knowledgeable about the strengths and weaknesses of their potential opponents. In conclusion, Salmon Run, more like salmon fun. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to gently click that like button and subscribe for more What's With Games. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter.